The church interior holds many stories and bears witness to life inside and outside the church on Rømø. Just look at the baptismal font, the altar, and the crucifix. Some of the furnishings date back to the Middle Ages, the oldest being the baptismal font from the 12th century. It is therefore older than the church, which dates from around 1300. Today, the baptismal font stands to the left of the altar, but in the Middle Ages it stood in the western part of the nave by the organ. Here, the men entered the church through a south-facing door, and the women through a north-facing door, where there is now a window. One of the first things they saw was the baptismal font, which stood between the two doors. In this way, the congregation emphasized that baptism was the gateway to Christian life. However, after the Reformation, the baptismal font was moved up to the altar. Another very old witness to the times is this crucifix. It dates from the early 14th century. Instead of a crown of thorns, Jesus wears a green laurel wreath because the crucifix points to Easter morning, when Jesus defeats evil and death in the resurrection. It is easy to imagine that the island's many sailors and their families found comfort in this. A woodcarver from Tønder, Peter Petersen, designed the church altar and installed it in 1686. At the top of both sides of the altar are two saint figures dating from the 15th century. It is difficult to say who the saint on the left is supposed to represent. However, Peter Petersen may have understood the figure more as a symbol of faith than as a saint. The chalice in the figure's right hand is a symbol of the communion, and the empty cross in the figure's left hand represents the risen Christ. On Rømø, there has been a tradition of understanding the other figure as Saint Clement, the patron saint of sailors, to whom the church is dedicated. Here, too, one can imagine that churchgoers in the late 17th century did not understand the figure as a saint, but rather as a symbol of hope. The dove that returned to Noah in the ark after the flood with a fresh olive leaf in its beak can be understood as a hope for a new beginning. In the New Testament, the anchor is also referred to as the hope that is anchored in the kingdom of God. The very voluptuous women with angel children on either side of the altar each hold a cornucopia. They can be interpreted as symbols of love. The altar can thus be seen as a presentation of the three fundamental Christian concepts: faith, hope, and love. The people of Rømø were in great need of faith, hope, and love as guiding principles in their harsh and turbulent lives.